Have you ever wondered what happens at the exact moment your heart stops beating? Not figuratively, but literally. When your body gives in and, for a few minutes, life seems to have come to an end. It was just another Monday. The sky was normal. The routine was going on until an unexpected silence took over his chest, and everything went dark. 6 minutes the clock ran without him. It was declared clinically dead, without a pulse, without reaction. But what no one expected was that when he returned, he would bring something more than a miracle. He returned with a vivid memory of what he had experienced on the other side, and that's where the story starts to challenge what we think we know about the life, a death, and everything that could be in between. What did he see? How was it possible to remember something while his body was erased? Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover now may surprise you, and maybe even change the way you see your own existence. Little did he know that, in that brief interval between his last breath and the sound of the machines beeping, something inexplicable was about to happen. The doctors were trying to revive him, while on the other side, he felt a strange lucidity. There was no body, there was no pain, just a presence that he could not explain. And all of this happened in just 6 minutes, or at least that's what the clock here said. Because for him it was like passing through a silent eternity. Now tell me, do you believe that consciousness can exist even after clinical death? Have you ever experienced something similar, or do you know someone who has gone through an experience like this? If this subject resonates with you, leave here in the comments what touched you the most or made you reflect so far. Your participation here is what makes this channel grow and reach more people with stories that touch the soul. And if you want to continue immersing yourself in this type of content, where science and spirituality intersect in a profound way, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. This helps me a lot to keep this conversation alive, and more importantly, open, because there are still many things he saw, and that now, for the first time, will be told. The moment his heart stopped was described by doctors as clinical and cold. No beating, no oxygen, a complete halt in life. But on the inside, where science is still trying to reach, something happened. He said that right after his body gave up, his mind, or perhaps something beyond his mind, began to see. It was like being outside himself, but with more clarity than ever before. No pain, no confusion, just a keen awareness that he was going somewhere. He found himself being pulled through a kind of tunnel, but it wasn't a physical tunnel. It was as if it were made of silence and time, a space where the notion of past and future no longer made sense. And at the end of that path, there was a light. Not blinding, not cold, but alive. A light that seemed to be looking back at him. Science tries to explain these reports as chemical reactions in the brain in its final seconds. According to studies from the University of Michigan, when the heart stops, the brain remains active for a few moments, releasing an intense discharge of gamma waves associated with heightened consciousness. But why, then, do thousands of people around the world describe similar scenes with such emotional precision? Is it just a biological reflex, or a glimpse into a hidden truth that we still don't understand? The most curious thing is that he didn't feel afraid. On the contrary, the feeling was one of welcome, as if I had finally understood something I had never been able to put into words. A kind of reunion with something that had always been there, but that only now made sense. This part of the experiment is what many describe as coming home. There was no judgment, no voices, no questions, just a deep awareness of everything he had already experienced. As if every decision, every feeling, every memory was floating around him, not to condemn but to show. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because what he finds right after this light completely changes the course of the story, and perhaps his life. Comment below. That makes sense to me if this type of experience also makes you think about what exists beyond what the eyes can see. He says that when he passed through that light, there was no more time, space, or body, only a presence. It wasn't a clearly visible figure, as one would expect from a dream or a memory. It was more like a living consciousness that filled everything around him, something impossible to describe with earthly words. And yet he knew right away, it knew him, with an intimacy so deep that it made him cry without tears, without a face. It was as if every emotion he had ever felt came back to him, condensed into seconds. And suddenly something happened. He saw faces. Two of them he recognized immediately: his grandfather, who had died more than 20 years ago, and a sister who had died at birth, someone he had only known about from old family stories. But now she was there, looking at him with a peace that no portrait could capture. The most striking thing was the lack of judgment. Contrary to what many imagine about an other side, he was not confronted with accusations, punishments, or questions. What he felt was a kind of review of his own life, but not like a movie that goes by too quickly. It was as if each choice he made was being shown with clarity and compassion, not to punish him, but to teach him. He said he felt ashamed at times, especially when reliving situations in which he had acted selfishly. But he also felt proud, seeing small acts of kindness that he himself had forgotten, but which seemed to have enormous value. This experience shook everything he believed in. He came away with a new mindset about time, relationships, and the silent impact we leave on others without even realizing it. It all made him wonder if perhaps the true purpose of life is hidden in the small, behind-the-scenes decisions of everyday life, rather than in the great deeds. The revelation he had there was not an answer about the universe, but a deep dive into himself, and that is what completely transformed his journey. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because what he felt when he came back, when he was pulled back to life, was just as intense as what he experienced there. Comment below. I'm on this journey too. If this type of experience also makes you rethink what really matters. It was sudden. No warning, no smooth transition. He said it felt like he was being yanked back into his body, like someone waking up with a start from a deep dream. The sounds of the emergency room came before the pain, the muffled screams, the whirring of equipment, the hurried footsteps, the confusion. His eyes opened slowly, as if the physical world no longer made much sense. But he was there, alive, breathing. And the first thing he felt was not relief, but strangeness. It was as if he had been returned to a place that no longer belonged. To him, in the same way, the doctors looked at each other in disbelief. To them, he had already passed the safe recovery window. 6 minutes without a heartbeat is the kind of thing that usually leaves irreversible scars. But there he was, conscious, talking, lucid. It was as if life itself had decided to give him another chance, without explanation, and he knew that. This chance was not for nothing. He came back with a different vision. The person who woke up on that stretcher was no longer the same person who had passed out hours earlier. Something inside him had changed. The small irritations, the grudges he held, the fear of being judged by others. All of that seemed smaller now, as if he had seen behind the scenes of life what really matters. He spoke of forgiveness with a sparkle in his eyes, forgiving others, but especially himself. He began to rethink the way he treated people. He learned to slow down, to listen more closely, to choose his words better. It was as if every second from then on had more weight, more intention, more truth. This experience brought about a silent transformation, the kind that doesn't need to be announced. He didn't go around shouting that he had seen the afterlife. He simply lived differently. He began to see beauty in simple things and to value time as the most precious thing. Because when you look at life from the outside, even for 6 minutes, everything takes on a new dimension. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because what he does with this second chance says a lot about how we can choose to live before it's too late. Write it down. This chance is worth its weight in gold. If this story also made you rethink your own way of living, what if it all ended today? Not decades from now, not after a long goodbye, but now in the middle of your routine while you're there, listening to this, distracted by your usual worries. Would you be ready? Not to die, necessarily, but to face the possibility that life the way you live it might be passing too quickly. The truth is that no one wakes up expecting that to be their last day, and yet for thousands of people, it arrives, unexpected, silent, definitive. The story you just heard is not an isolated case. There are thousands of similar stories spread across the world, people who were between life and death for a moment, and came back transformed, not because they saw angels or golden skies, but because in that space between the here and the beyond, they realized how much they were wasting what really matters. And then comes the question that no one likes to ask themselves: are you where you want to be? Are you with the person who makes your soul grow? Or are you pushing life with decisions that no longer make sense, surrounded by distractions and urgencies that only distance you from yourself? It's hard to face this head-on, I know, but sometimes we need this reality check to realign our course, to get out of automatic mode, to remember that every choice leaves a trail. Sometimes true transformation begins when we understand that we don't need to wait for a miracle, a trauma, or a near-death experience to live more consciously. Our mindset changes when we understand that time is the rarest thing we have, and that perhaps the biggest mistake is to think that there will always be more time. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because there is a hidden pattern to these near-death stories that few people notice, and it may reveal a greater meaning behind it all. Comment below: life is in a hurry. If this reflection also made you look at your own story with different eyes. If you've made it this far, it's because this topic touched you in some way. And that's exactly why this channel exists, so we can talk about what really matters, with depth, curiosity, and respect. If this content made sense to you, if it made you reflect or even see life from a different perspective, consider subscribing to the channel. Here we'll continue exploring stories, experiences, and truths that are often hidden behind the hustle and bustle of everyday life. Leave a comment below with the phrase, "This message was for me," just so I know you've been with me until the end of this journey. This helps me understand who really connects with this type of content. And if you felt this connection, leave your like too. It shows that it's worth continuing to bring reflections like this here. There is a video here that complements all of this and can open your eyes even more. Click and continue with me there. The conversation is not over yet.